walls that are up to 2 meters high will not show as cut in your floor plan, even though they are being cut. So I would just create this wall as an unconnected wall. Let's go to 2000 millimeters. And I would create here my section view. I would go to this section view now. Let's change this to consistent colors. So this is my level 1. Here you can see that in my level 1, inside of the view range, I have my cut plane 1200 millimeters. So here in this section, you can see if I go like 1200. So this is my cut plane. So you can see that this wall is being cut. And if I put it to, let's say 1500, you can see that it is being cut. So it should be shown as cut inside my floor plan. But if I use my thin lines and I would just zoom here, you can see that it is now being shown in projection. I would show this to you in view tiles, so you would be better able to see this. So this one is now in projection even though it is cut, and if I move this to be 2000 millimeters, you can see that my representation of the wall changed, and now it is projecting with the cut line style and not the projection line style. If I put this to be 1999 millimeters, you can see that now it is again in the projection. If I put this to 2000, it is being now shown as it should be, so cut. So this is one limitation or bug of Revit, which is put there intentionally. I actually do not know why. But if you are using a wall with the top constraint which is unconnected and the wall height is less than 2000 millimeters, it will show in your floor plan as projection even though it is being cut. The way to overcome this is, if you need to use something like this and you need to show your wall to be cut, you should use the top constraint not to be unconnected, but let's put here to be constrained up to the level 1, so it is the same level, and use the top offset. So if I use here 1500, you can see now that it is being shown cut as it should be. And this is only because of the fact that I use the top constraint, so it is constrained. If I change this back again to unconnected, you can see that it is now in projection. So this is the way to overcome this thing, that you would just constrain the wall. The next thing is with the walls, and that is, let's imagine that I have my wall here and I put here the mark 10. And now if I move this wall with move command, like normal command, you can see that the mark still remains here. But what I've discovered is that if I move my wall with disjoin here selected, which sometimes you need to do, what the Revit does is that it actually will remove your mark. You can see that now I have nothing here and I had 10. If you are using your mark to something, to some parameters, you should be aware of, because like it happened to me on my projects that I moved my walls with disjoint tool and it cleared my mark and I was like, what's happening? So this is a bug in Revit you should be aware of. The next thing, I will now turn off my thin layers. The next thing here is about the joining of walls. So if I have a wall and I have a, let's put here the single flash, a door in here, and I create another wall, let's say like this here, and I would like to cut this opening from this wall as well. Probably what you already know is something like this, or we were talking about this before, that if I join this now together, you can see that it cut the opening from the joined wall. But what you probably do not know, or maybe you do not know, I didn't know that, is that there is a distance limit, and this wall doesn't need to be like adjacent or doesn't need to be touching. So if I put here dimension, there is a threshold which is 6 inches, which is around 152.4 millimeters. So if I put this to 153, and I try to join these two walls, now you can see that I got that they are not intersecting. But if I now move this to 152 millimeters, so I am now inside of this threshold, and I join these two walls together, you can see that it actually cut the opening from this wall based on this door in this wall, because these two walls are now being considered joined together, even though that they are actually apart. If we stay here with this example, you have a door family here which is now cutting nicely, but I have seen some families, also we in our projects have families like this, and if you place them you can see something like this, that like the wall is being cut but is not being cut all the way through. So what's happening here? The reason is that inside the door family, if I go here into this door family and I go to my elevations and I select by pressing the tab here, you can see that I have my opening cut here. So the opening inside of this door is being done with this opening tool here. So this opening tool is basically cutting all the way through everything it goes. But if I go now here inside of this family, which I created just for like the showing purposes, and I do the same, you can see that actually now here in 3D, if I hover around, this one is being cut not with the opening cut tool. So void inside of this family is cutting my wall. And if I go to my reference plane here, you can see that the extent of this void is driven by this XX parameter, which is set to this reference line. So I put here a symbolic line as well for you to be able to see it in the floor plan. So here you can see that now this is like the limit of my void inside of this family. And you can see that if I move this to be, let's say, 250, that it is cutting more. And if I move it to, I can move it like even with these shape handles. So if I move it outside, it is not cutting at all. If I move it all the way through, you can see that now it is cutting all the way through, like with the opening tool. So if something like this happens to you, that your families are cutting only part of the joint wall, there is like almost 100% probability that there is a void inside of this family, that it is not being long enough for this family to cut both walls.